Okay, boss. In the last class, we just been um, was trying to understand about architecture of BW, or what all different kind of objects do we have in BW, like cube, ODS, multi-provider, info set, and we had something called info object, right? Just getting into some more details into it. Then today what we'll do is we'll just get into some more details of those objects. And then what I'll do, I'll just walk you through on the system. I'll just create some cube, I'll just load some data, and then I'll just run some report just to get the feel how the BW looks like. That's it. I'm not making you learn about cube or something. Just to get the feel how the BW look like. That's it. Okay. Then we'll get into details of each of this later. Okay. So we'll just get into some other objects like info area, info object catalog, info objects, master data, cube, all those. Yeah. Now, see, BW is an enterprise data warehousing application. So we use that software, install it on top of database, and you start customizing it as per some customer requirements. Yeah, you'll have some client or customer, you'll have some business requirements. Based on the business requirements, you start customizing this data warehousing applications and deliver the reports what all he needs. That is what we do as part of what? Data warehousing and as part of BW. Okay. So what we generally do is, when you say you're developing some data warehousing applications or applications out of BW, you understand the reporting requirement from the user. So based on the reporting requirements, you'll understand what data is required to deliver this report out, and then identify where is this data available. Is this data in ECC or in Oracle or SAP database, or where is it? Once you identify where the data is available, you start building out the interface or connection between that source and BW, and extract all those data and then stage it into BW. So when it comes to staging of data into BW, I can stage it into DSO, I can stage it into what? Cube or master. We've seen there are different data containers like master data, cube, ODS, PSA. So you extract all the master data into master data tables and extract the transaction data into the cube, and on top of this you start creating a report and deliver it to the user. That is what we do. Clear in this? That is what about implementing a data warehousing application. Understand the requirements. So based on the requirements, you understand what data do you need, and understand where is this data available, and once you understand the source, establish a connection between the source and BW, and enable the data flow. Create your containers in BW, extract the data, load into those containers, and start delivering reports. Ante, that is how BW. Okay, boss. So when you're trying to build a data warehousing application, you start in BW, you start using these objects like info area, info object catalog, cubes, DSOs, all this. So we're just trying to understand what is each object about. Okay. Now first one was info area. It is just like your folder in Windows. Now when I give you lot of files, what you do? Just to organize those files, you create a folder, right, in Windows. Yeah. Similar way, when you let's say you're developing some data warehousing application, I would like to build lot of data containers. Like I need to have one cube for sales, I need to have some cube for finance, I need to have one more cube for inventory data, I need to have one more cube for say general ledger data. Like I've got a whole different set of database. Instead of holding all the cubes in one block, what I can do, I can organize it. I'll just create one info area saying sales. I'll hold all my data containers of sales into it. I'll have one more info area saying finance. I'll hold all my data containers of finance. So there's no technical importance here. We are just using this info area similar to your folder in Windows to organize your data containers or organize your objects in your data warehousing in BW. You're trying to build a data warehousing application. As part of that, you start creating a lot of objects, and you want to organize those objects based on the type or whatever it is. That is where we are doing what? Info areas. It is just used to organize your project, organize your objects, and there's no limit. Like you can go about creating. Can you create a folder within a folder? Any folders at you can go about creating info to n number of levels, and it's just for organizing, no technical importance. Okay. Next point to be noted is any object you create in SAP BW, whether it is cube or ODS or multi-provider or info object or info set, info area, whatever it is, every object would have two names. One is technical name and one is description. And technical name is what I use to identify in the backend data dictionary. We identify that object with the technical name in the backend. Description is for the user, for us to understand the object. That's it. Okay. Okay. Clear on this technical name description. Once the object is created, you cannot change the technical names, whether it is cube, info area, whatever it is. Every object would have technical name and description, right? Once the object is created, you will not be able to change the technical name. If you want to change the technical name, the only option is delete the object and recreate with the new name. That's the only option here. Okay, boss? Good, boss.
So by objects we mean info objects?
Any object. See, when I want to say info object, I will use the word info object. When I just use the word object, it could be any object in BW, whether it could be cube, ODS or master data info object or info area, info object catalog, anything it is.
Okay.
Anything, any object. When I use object, it could be any object in BW. Okay. And when I want to stress on info object, I would say info object. Okay. Good. And one more thing is any object in BW, whether it is info area or info object or cube, will always have two types of objects. One is customized objects and one is standard objects. And when I say customized objects are those objects what we create from the scratch. Okay. But if you're trying to use some object what is delivered by SAP, we call them as standard objects. BW is rich in business content. There are a lot of ready-made cubes, lot of ready-made reports, lot of ready-made web reports, lot of ready-made workbooks, lot of ready-made ODS objects, lot of ready-made info objects are delivered by SAP. If you feel that the business content what is delivered by SAP is suitable to your requirement, you can use it. If not, what you start creating on your own. Or you can also do this. Let's say there is some ready-made business content cube which is given by SAP. Let's say 70% of it is suiting my requirement, but 30% doesn't suit. What I do, I'll use that object as copy of it, and I'll create a copy of it and then customize it as per my requirement. I'll create a new object by taking the standard object as a copy and then customize it as per my requirement. We can also do that also. Clear on this? So do you understand what is standard object and what is business customized object? Customized object is something which we create from the start, yeah. And business content object is something which is delivered by SAP. Okay. And point to be noted here is any object, whether it is cube, ODS, multiple, anything, I can only use it only if it is in active version. In BW it does maintain versioning of the object. I can only use the object if it is in which version was active version. Okay. But all the objects which are delivered by SAP as part of business content, it will be available in delivered version. So if it is in delivered version, can I use it first? No. So then what you do, let's say you have some business content cube which is given, you want it. Okay. So what you do, you have to install it. You do some process called installing the business content object. When you do that, what happens? What is given by SAP will be delivered version. It creates a copy of that object in active version, then you can start using this. It does not convert that version. You'll always have a delivered version copy. You install it, then it creates a copy of the same object as what? Active, and then gives you can start using it. Suppose if I delete this, I can again install and get that back again. Clear this? Okay, boss? Good. You understood about what is info area, right? Just like a folder where you want to place all your objects, boss. Next, info object catalogs. Okay. So before we understand this, you need to understand this one, then get back to that verse. Now, should verse. So, what did we understand? We are using BW to implement some data warehousing application or data warehousing requirements for a business. So, what did I say? You will understand the reporting requirements. Based on the reporting requirements, you will understand where is the data available, and based on the structure of the data, then you start extract the data and then load into BW and store it. Let's say in the reporting, I had a requirement like this. Say I just wanted to give a report on the order performance. Let's say customer performance. Say customer number say some revenues, and let's say on the trending I want to get year also. In a particular year, for a particular customer, what is my revenues? That's my report. Okay. So I wanted 3 columns in my report. Yes or no? So what I'll do, I'll find out where is this 3 columns, in which source it is. So then I find out that it is in ECC bus, or I found out that it is in Oracle database. Then what I do, I go and find out in which table it is available in the source. So when, let's say I found out one table, okay, there was a table with actually 10 columns in it, but we are not using those 10 in BW. What do we need? We only need 3 columns or 3 fields. So I could analyze my source and find out a table which has got 3 columns in it. Okay. So how many columns? 3 columns. So I'm going to extract these 3 columns data and then store in BW. If I need to extract this data and store in a container, should this container also have 3 columns in it? In the source, it is stored in a table with 10 columns, but I actually need 3 columns. I'm only going to extract those 3 columns and load into my cube. So even my cube should have 3 columns if I need to accommodate that data. Yes or no? In the source, we refer that each column as a field. When it comes to BW, each column we refer it as info object. Ante. So each data element or each field is what we refer it as info object in BW. Suppose say I have a source, okay, and there is a table, whether it is ECC, Oracle, whatever it is, ultimately they store data in form of table only, right? There is a table, let's say I've got with 100 columns. I would like to extract all those 100 columns and load into a cube. So now if I need to create my cube, before I extract, I need to design or create my cube, right? If I need to create my cube, how many columns should this cube contain? 100 columns. So if I need to have 100 columns, how many info objects will I need? 100. So first I will create 100 info objects, then group those info objects and create my cube. Then once my cube is formed, I have the target, I have the source table, connect the source table and my target with the data flow and trigger the loads. Then what data is extracted from the source and loaded into my queue, and then I will deliver a report on top of this queue. Ante BW. At any column lekkeskolo, info lekkeskolo, create jayalo, akkadi chetkose dirlo pettal report vehicle. Ante na BW game undu. You getting what I am saying? This is what it is. So now each column is what we refer to as info object. I don't know definition, but info object is the meaning. Clear this now? Okay. Now, book this is like building block to build any structure. So each, let's say you create info object. I'm going to use this info objects to build up any structure like cube, ODS, master data tables. Each info object. We have seen mainly 3 data containers. One is master data, ODS and cube. Any data container you want to create, you always have to use info objects. First, let's say I want to create master data with 5 columns. So create 5 info objects, group those 5 info objects, create master data table. Let's say I want to create a queue with 10 columns in it. So create 10 info objects, group those 10 info objects, create a queue. Let's say I want to create a ODS with say 20 columns. Say create 20 info objects, group those 20 info objects, create ODS. Ante ka. Edana info object base another. Okay, Navas? And point to be noted here is, once I create my info object, it can be reused in n number of structures. Let's say I want to create 5 cubes. Cube 1, say 3 cubes, cube 1, cube 2, cube 3. In cube 1 I wanted a column customer. Okay. In cube 2 also I wanted a column customer. In cube 3 also I wanted a column customer. So when I need 3 cubes and all the 3 cubes wanted a customer, I don't go about creating 3 info objects. I'll create info object 1 as once I create info object customer, I can use the same thing in cube 1, cube 2, cube 3. That's what I mean. Once info object is created, it can be reused in creating n number of structures, n number of objects. ఇప్పుడు కస్టమర్ అనే info object క్రియేట్ చేసినాం అనుకో కాలం కోసం, అదే info object క్యూబ్ 1లో, క్యూబ్ 2లో, ODS 1, ODS 2లో, మాస్టర్ డేటా 2లో ఎక్కడైనా వాడుకోవచ్చు రీయూజబిలిటీ. ఓకేనా? These info objects will be of 5 types. You can, okay, these info objects will be of 5 types. One is characteristic info objects, key figure, time, unit and the technical characteristics. These info objects will be of 5 different types actually. Okay, now what is a characteristic info object? Now if you look at this other 3, time, characteristic, unit characteristic, technical characteristic, they are also characteristics only, but they are special type of characteristics. So I can say broadly it will be 2 things, characteristic and key figures. Now within characteristic you have three special, apart from normal characteristic, we have three special type of characteristics. Characteristic lo three types kaadu. Broadly I would say you have characteristics and key figures first. Apart from normal characteristics, we have three special type of characteristics as what? Time, unit and technical. అంతేగాని డోంట్ అండర్స్టాండ్ సే క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్ మళ్ళీ మూడు టైప్లు అని కాదు. ఆ మూడు కాక ఎక్స్ట్రా ఉంది. నార్మల్ క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్ ఉంటుంది. నార్మల్ క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్స్ కాకుండా ఇలా స్పెషల్ లైక్ వాట్? యూనిట్, టైమ్ అండ్ టెక్నికల్. ఓకే, నౌ సింపుల్. వాట్ do you mean by characteristic and what do you mean by key figure? Okay, good. All your business subjects, okay, and all your descriptive information becomes characteristic. All your business subjects and all your descriptive information becomes characteristics. ఇట్లా చెప్తే మనకు అర్థం కాదు, మొరటగా చెప్తా చూడ. ఓకే, when you say characteristic information are those which cannot be aggregated. Characteristic information are those on which you cannot perform aggregation functions. For example, నాకు కస్టమర్ ఉన్నాడు అన్న, C1 ఉన్నాడు, C2 ఉన్నాడు. C1 ప్లస్ C2 ఎంత అన్న? ఎంత? No result, right? So you are not able to perform any aggregation. You cannot perform sum, min, max ala undadu. So those are characteristic informations. Any information value on which you cannot aggregate them, those are referred as ఇప్పుడు అర్థమైన characteristic అంటే అది. అట్లా బుక్లో మాట్లాడితే అట్లా ఉంటుంది. ఆల్ బిజినెస్ సబ్జెక్ట్స్ డిస్క్రిప్టివ్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఈజ్ వాట్? క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్. ఇంకా మొరటుగా అంటే ఏదైతే మనం అగ్రిగేట్ చేయలేమో అవన్నీ క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్స్ అన్నమాట. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ కెన్ ఐ సే కస్టమర్ నంబర్, కస్టమర్ అడ్రస్, రీజన్, కంపెనీ కోడ్, కంట్రోలింగ్ ఏరియా, కాస్ట్ సెంటర్. ఆల్ దిస్ యూ వుడ్ గెట్ ఇన్ టు వాట్? రీజన్, కంట్రీ, స్టేట్, డిస్ట్రిక్ట్, all this will get into what? Characteristics. Okay. Next, key figure. Now the same thing in BO you refer it as dimension and characteristic. Okay, boss. Now then there's something called key figure, boss. It's all key figure is something. Okay, when you say key figure, it's all something which can be quantified, which can be measured. Enta, enni and lekkegalute key figure avutannattu. Ante key figures are those informatics on which you can perform aggregation function. That aggregation function could be sum or min or max or whatever it is, but you can perform an aggregation function on it. For example, yesterday I had revenue of 1000, today I had revenue of 2000. So what is my total revenue? Then lekkese 3000 kalpochu, right? You are able to add it up. Okay. Again another example, say last year my employee strength was 1000. Now this year my employee strength is 1200. What is my total strength of my employees? 1200 or 2200? 1200 only. In this kind of key figure, you are not doing sum. You are only picking latest value. Whatever it is, whether you pick min, max, highest, latest. Suppose last year I had 1000 employees. Now this year I got 900 employees. So you are not picking highest. You are picking latest first. Latest value. So that is called exception aggregation. Those are called as non-cumulative key figures. If 100 plus 200 add this, we call them as cumulative key figures. If you are not cumulating, you are picking latest value, first value, last value, min, max, and those becomes what? Non-cumulative key figures. You are not cumulating them. But ultimately, that is also an aggregation function only, right? Min, max, good aggregation function. So on any infobit on which you can perform some aggregation function, like count, min, max, sum, all this, those becomes key figures. Example. మనకు బాగా అర్థమైంది ప్రైజు, క్వాంటిటీ, రెవెన్యూ, నెట్ వాల్యూ, ఆర్డర్ వాల్యూ, గ్రాస్ ఆర్డర్ వాల్యూ, బ్యాక్ ఆర్డర్ వాల్యూ, డెలివరీ వాల్యూ, టోటల్ ఇన్వాయిస్ వాల్యూ, టోటల్ నెట్ సేల్స్, total quantity, cost of goods sold, all this with number of employees in a company, what is my stock in hand, total receipts, total issues, all this will become your what? Measures or nothing but what? Key figures. Same thing in BO we call it as measures. Okay, not done. Then next is time characteristic. Time characteristics are also characteristics only. Only thing these are special type of characteristics. Time characteristic and that's good characteristic, but only the special type of characteristics. That's it. Okay. So when you say time characteristics are those informatics which hold time factor data like date, month, year, quarter, week. ఇలాంటి డేటా పెట్టుకునే ఇన్ఫాబిక్స్ అన్నిటి టైం క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్స్ అంటాం. సో టైం క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్ ఇన్ఫాబిక్స్ ఆర్ దోస్ ఇన్ఫాబిక్స్ విచ్ హోల్డ్ టైం ఫ్యాక్టర్ డేటా లైక్ డేట్, మంత్, ఇయర్, క్వార్టర్, వీక్ అన్ని పెట్టుకుంటూ వెళ్తుంటే దాని దట్ బికమ్స్ వాట్ టైం క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్స్. పాయింట్ టు బి నోటెడ్, we can never create a time characteristic bus. We can only use a time characteristics what is delivered by SAP. We can never create a time characteristics at all. We can only use time characteristics what is delivered by SAP as part of business content. Clear? Done? Okay, next. Unit characteristics bus. So when I say unit characteristics, these are also characteristics only. You would have characteristics, special type of characteristics. In two cases, you go for this unit characteristics. When you look at this, unit characteristic infobics are those infobics which can hold list of currencies or list of unit of measures. Only in these two cases, you go for unit characteristics. Let's say I wanted to feel like document currency. This is holding on in which currency this transaction was posted. INR, USD, Euro, Yen, atlani currencies unnayinko. Alanti column ni unit characteristic anta. Okay. Let's say I have like say weight unit of a product anta. So I'll say it has each piece, kg, liters, bags, grams, kilograms and betkonto. Avani unit of measures. Ee rendu scenarios lo I'll go for what? I'll model those kind of columns as what? Unit characteristics. Okay, no, done. So, unit characteristic infobics are those infobics or those characteristics which hold list of currencies or list of unit of measures. Ee rendu scenarios lo nu unit characteristic keltam. Clear? Done? Okay. Next. Technical characteristics. So to understand this, try to understand this. Now you create a cube in BW bus. You'll have a table in the source. You formulate a data flow and you trigger the data loading process. When you trigger the data loading process, what happens? It extracts the data from source and loads into cube. Okay, no? So is this loading regular job or one-time job bus? Regular job. Let's say now in the source there are 100 transactions. You trigger the load. All 100 will come into my cube. Let's say on the next day, 10 more new transactions are created bus. Again you perform a load to bring in those 10. Again the 10 comes into my queue. Again let's say 10 more created. Again you perform a load. Again the next 10 comes in. So now if I see my cube, how many records you will have it? 120, first 100, next 10, next 10. So totally it's what? 120 records. Now in the cube I would like to know which record was brought in first and which is the second request and which was the third request. Which was the record which brought in with the first instance of loading. Which was the record which I brought in the second instance of loading, and what was the record of the third instance of loading. So to recognize this, what you do in the queue, apart from the normal columns, you'll also maintain a column called request number. Every time I trigger the load, I maintain something called request number, for which request run this now R1. Next time you run R2. Next R1 R2 undadu. It will have very big number like REQU underscore so and so on, 12 digit number ఉంటుంది. But does maintain a number like that. So that is called request ID. Clear this? So the request ID, say, now when you're extracting data from source, data comes in form of packets. We'll see that in form of packets. Okay, let's say I've got 1 lakh records. If I say packet size is 50, first 50 would come in packet 1, second 50 would come in packet 2. So it will also hold in this request which packet ID it is and which is the record number 1. So request R1, packet ID 1, record number 1. Request R1, packet 1, record number 2. It maintains those technical information about the loading. So with this technical information, you can know for which instance of loading this record has come into my queue. Clear this? So that is what. So when you want to hold those information about loading part, which was a request, which was a data packet, which was a record number, we refer only those as technical characteristics. Because the end users don't get to see that. It is all maintained internally in the system to recognize, to maintain, to organize that data. Because why do I need to organize it? Suppose say you loaded 3 requests. After 1 week, I identified that the instance of loading second request was wrong. I am supposed to delete all the records which have come in with the instance R2 and reload again. So should I know which record I've come with R2 bus? If I don't know, how will I delete? So I know, then once I know, I'll go to my cube, say delete all the records of R2 bus. System also can perform that operation only if it is able to recognize that record. So to recognize, organize the data based on the request wise, it uses that field called request in the queue. So maintaining information about all the loading part is what done by technical CAD. Only way data packet, record number, packet number, only these mainly. Clear? So technical characteristics are also characteristics, but only thing is they are special type of characteristics. Okay? And technical characteristics also you cannot create. You can only use existing ones. I have never specified this point for these three, right? Characteristics, key figures and unit. You can create characteristics or you can use existing ones. You can create key figures or you can use existing ones. If you want, you can create your own unit characteristics, or if you want, you can use the existing ones also. Mainly for unit characteristics, they have given two things. One is zero currency, zero unit, and the standard objects. If you want to hold currencies, I can use zero currency. If you want to hold list of unit of measures, I can use zero unit. So if you want to use zero currency or zero unit, if you don't want them, you can still create your own unit characteristics also. Okay? So you should ask me a question, why is that they never allowed for time characteristic? Why is that they are allowing it for unit? When you go to system, I'll answer that point. But as of now, you cannot create technical or you cannot create time characteristics. You can only create normal characteristics, key figures and unit characteristics. Okay, Nanda?
So this means if there is any issue with any particular record, we can figure it out using record ID.
Record ID, request number.
We can see the request ID.
We can see. Any other doubt? See, if you ask doubts, I can give. I might have missed some point. I can raise it out here. What feel got that? Technical characteristics. Not like audit trail. You're basically maintaining data with respect to the instance of loading, because I want to know at which instance the data has come in. So it maintains some values in the cube like request number, all those. So to maintain this information, it does use those technical characteristics. And this you never specify that you want also. By default, every cube will start maintaining those technical columns automatically.
So let's say R2 load 1000 records, so 500 load, 500 load value. R2 something.
R1 lo?
Load
Yeah. He's saying I have done R2 load, which is supposed to bring in 500, but they just got in 200, 300 missed out. So then what do you do? You'll be loading through process chains, right? You have dedicated monitoring tools in BW, which we discussed in the last class. When you see monitor, you find it as red, which says the request has failed. You'll understand the reason why it is failed, fix the problem, and try to reprocess that request again. When you reprocess that, what happens? You're trying to reload. It has failed for some reason X. Okay, you fix that problem X. Okay, then you delete the bad request in the queue and reprocess that request again. So what happens? Now the 500 gets loaded. Because you'll have a dedicated monitoring team who will be monitoring those loads.
But still, will it be stamped R2 on that?
No, the number would be generated uniquely. Now you're asking me first to try to load, it has come with R2.
Yes.
Now I delete this and reprocess it again, it doesn't bring with R2, no. It comes with R3. Kotta request untundana. Some unique number comes out, which is generated automatically, you don't do anything. Okay, Nana? Done? Okay. Now what we are planning is, in BW we are trying to build a data warehousing up solution. Yeah? So what you've done is, you built an info area. Now ultimately you want to do reporting on some provider, which could be queue. But if you need to build my queue, what? I need to build info objects. So based on the source structure, you identified that you wanted 5 columns or 10 columns. Then what I should do first, I should create 10 info objects, then group those 10 info objects and create my queue. Okay, boss? So now when it comes to creating this 10 info objects, this could be of different type. This could be characteristics or key figures, whatever it is, right? So what I want to do is, once I have the info area ready, I want to create those 10 info objects. Let's say I want to have 7 characteristics, 3 were key figures as per the requirement. Okay? So instead of creating all these 10 info objects in one folder or one info area, I want to further organize it. I want to have all the characteristics into one folder. I want to have all the key figure info objects onto one folder. To organize my info objects based on their type, I would use info object catalogs. Ultimately, my requirement is to create my info objects and create my queue using them. But before I create info objects, I want to organize those info objects based on their type. So what I would do is I would create my info object catalogs, one for characteristic, one for key figure. Under the characteristic info object catalog, I'll create all my characteristic info objects. Under the key figure info object catalog, I'll create all my key figures under. Only organizing it on the type of info object, nothing else. Okay, boss? So we just use a catalog to organize those info objects based on the type. You can only create catalog for characteristic, catalog for key figure. You cannot create catalog for unit, time, technical, only info object catalog for characteristics and info object catalog for key figures. And why do we use them? To organize those info objects based on the type. Okay.
You can say it as subfolder.
Subfolder. Now we'll have to get it. We'll get into this info object creation later, but don't worry. Now what we do is, now we'll start getting it. Now I'm not teaching you anything now. I'll come back to this slide later, how to create info objects in depth one by one. But now what I'm trying to do, I'm just taking some scenario and load the data and then create some report for you and then show how BW works in Antavarkya. Only cinema, nothing else. Okay? I'm not teaching you anything. Okay. I'll just start.